Before viewing video lessons, it is important to read the textbook using the learning guide as your turn-by-turn directions. Then use the learning guide to take organized notes in your own words with examples and pictures. Chapter 1, The Early History of Psychology, Part 1. When we look at the history of psychology, the first question you ask is, how old is psychology? Well, that depends a little bit on how you define psychology. If we define it really simply as, why did they do that? Then psychology is as old as time. Prior to 1879, we answered questions such as, why did they do that, using either philosophy or physiology. In the case of philosophy, many ancient cultures explained people's behavior through supernatural explanations. These would be explanations like someone was cursed or they were possessed by an evil spirit. From the physiological standpoint, some ancient cultures believed that there was something wrong in the body when someone was behaving abnormally. One ancient culture believed that women who were excited were hysterical, and hysterical literally meant a wandering uterus. If you think of the word hysterectomy today, you can see where that comes from. Another ancient culture believed that sometimes people could have too much blood, and that might cause them to behave strangely. And so you can get rid of some blood. So they used to bleed people in a way to treat behavioral problems. But then, in 1879, things change. We're moving on to Learning Objective 1.1. In 1879, a man named Wilhelm Wundt, who was working at the University of Leipzig in Germany, fought to make psychology an independent discipline. Up until that point, when it was studied in universities, it was sort of a subfield of philosophy. He fought to make it a separate discipline that used science to study consciousness. He believed that psychology should use scientific principles of systematic observation to study consciousness, which is defined as awareness, both internal and external awareness, as well as awareness of self. So he established the first laboratory for the study of psychology in 1879, and psychology was born. But like most infants, psychology grew quickly. This is the growth of psychology from 1879 to 1893 in North America, mainly the US. And what you see is an explosion of psychology laboratories all across the country. There's a couple of reasons for that. One reason was that scientists from Europe, to include Germany, were immigrating in large numbers to the US at this time, and so they were bringing the science of psychology back with them. A lot of Americans also went to Europe to get educated and then came back to the United States. We also had a big growth in the creation of universities and the growth of universities around this time in our country. And so psychology just exploded all over North America. Only psychology has a problem. How do you scientifically study psychology? How do you systematically observe consciousness, if we want to follow Wilhelm Wundt's definition? How do we do that? In the physical and natural sciences, science is relatively easy. We can make all kinds of observations about a rock to try to learn about it. We can look at it, we can weigh it, we can measure it, we can see how it reacts to other substances, so we can dunk it in water, we can try to light it on fire. All kinds of things can tell us about the content of that particular rock. Doesn't work so well with people. So science seeks to develop theories and laws to explain natural phenomenon based on observations. But we have a big question. Where should psychology begin? What should it focus on? How do you study behavior? If you can't duck it in water and light it on fire, how are we going to observe what's going on with this thing called consciousness? So since 1879, 10 major historical schools of psychology have tried to answer this question. Each of these schools of psychology describes what psychology is in a slightly different way and has unique methods for how we should study it. Over the course of the rest of Chapter 1, we will be going into the rest of these theories in greater detail.